Question number 4, Dr. Jian.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Building and Housing. What reports has he received on a number of properties bought and sold by those with tax residency overseas, and how do they compare with previous reports?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday's data provides us with tax residency status for every property bought and settled between the 1st of October 2015 and the 31st of March 2016, or 67,087 transfers. There were 1,692 buyers, or 2.5%, with offshore tax residency, and 1,695 sellers with offshore tax residency, i.e. there was a net reduction of 3 properties over 6 months owned by people with overseas tax residency. This latest data from LINZ is actually very much in line with the IRD report that was published a year ago, estimating that 2% of properties in New Zealand are owned offshore, including by New Zealand residents or citizens who are tax residents offshore.
Supplementary.
Order. The member can have a supplementary shortly. Supplementary question, Dr. Jian.
What conditions apply to the data that need to be considered in how it is interpreted?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the data is preconditioned by 4 factors. Firstly, it's specifically for the 6-month period and does not include property agreements entered into before the 1st of October. Secondly, it is about tax residency and not citizenship or residency. A New Zealand citizen or permanent resident whose tax residency is in China, Australia or the UK would be included in those numbers, although we would not usually describe them as foreign buyers. Thirdly, if there is more than one taxpayer, which is quite common on property transfers, if even just one of the 5 names on the property transfer are from a person that is offshore, the transfer is included in the numbers. And finally, the data includes non-residential property where there are no houses, which make up about 10%. So these numbers are likely to overstate the number of homes that are owned by people beyond New Zealand tax residency.
Supplementary question, David Seymour.
Has the Minister heard any reports of conspicuously Australian people bidding at house auctions?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
No, they might be wearing a Wallabies jersey, but I think the member very astutely makes the point of the anti-New Zealand approach of attacking one ethnic group, be it Australians or someone else.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Jian.
Does this data support the claims made last year that 40% of buyers in Auckland are from China?
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Before I call the Minister, he needs to be very careful with his answer. And the standing Speaker's ruling 1975, it's not appropriate now for to use this question to bring an opposition party into the answer when the question has come from the government. I'll allow the Minister to proceed with the answer.
There is no possible interpretation of the data that would support the claim that 40% of buyers are from China. Only 444 of the buyers had tax residency in China, or 0.7% of the property bought and settled in the 6-month period. The Australian figure was about the same. The UK figure was about half. The data might move around a bit as we get a longer term period, but anybody who claims that the figure is 40% is being deliberately misleading.
Question number 5, Grant Robertson.